Okay, so if I've pushed all the right buttons, I should be live. So hello, hello, hello. It's Lisa Turner from Psychademy here. So if you can see me and hear me, it'd be really super lovely if you could pop a little comment and say that you can see me and hear me. That would be fabulous. Okay, so today I'm very excited because I'm going to be talking about a bit more about our spiritual tipping point, going further into this place of how you create that sense of certainty, of stillness, of power, and how you can step into that being that spiritual leader to guide everyone through to this next level. So, hey, Rachel, I can see you. You can see me. Cool. Now, says Facebook user. I don't know if that's you, Rachel, if that's someone else. But with this StreamYard, what you need to do is you need to give StreamYard permission so that I can see who you are and know who's commenting. So, but if you don't want to do that, you just want to pop your name, just sign your name when you pop your comment. Otherwise, I just get Facebook user, which is not very friendly, is it? I don't know who you are. I'm sure you're a lovely person, but I would love to know even more who you are. So let's talk a little bit about this whole idea of being at this point of our spiritual tipping point. So we talked a couple of weeks ago in my previous live, and that's there. Go and you can go and catch those lives on the main page. I talked about this idea of us being at this tipping point where the world is seeking and calling forth your spiritual leadership. So I wanted to talk a little bit about these concepts of spiritual leadership. So I've got lots of notes here. I've got lots of thoughts that I want to share with you. So we talked about this idea of, so somebody's asked, how can you see your previous lives? If you go to my page, see on this screen here where it says Lisa Turner Psychademy, that's me. And if you go to that page on Facebook, Lisa Turner Psychademy, that's that main page, and they should be all listed there. And I'll drop, over the next day or so, over the next few days, I'll be sharing how you can find all of those. We're going to put all of them on a page for you so you can find them all. So one of the things I hear a lot of people say is things like this. So maybe you can relate to this. Do you look out at the world and go, I wish things were different? Do you see the separation, the division, the arguments? And does it bother you? Does it disturb you? Does it upset you? All this divisiveness, this separation, this them and us, this they are doing this. If you see any of this and you think, oh, I wish things were different. Maybe you look out at the world and you see leaders kind of making decisions that don't seem to be for the good of all. If you can relate to that, then I'm going to explore more about this. I'm just going to do something which means I might not be able to see your posts for the moment. So if you can relate to this, if you can look out at the world and you think, I wish things were different. I wish our leaders would be making decisions that are for the highest good of all. If you can relate to that, then let me know. If you've ever thought, maybe you can relate to this. Here's so maybe you're thinking leaders should be doing something different, or those people should be doing something different. But I've got to, if you've been saying or sensing that, but I want to give you a different way of exploring and seeing the world. So the question I want to ask you is this. And the question is, are you actually in spiritual pain? So what do I mean by this? So physical pain, this is the pain we feel, it's obvious, you stub your toe, you break your arm, it hurts. And the pain we feel is actually a sign that we need to sit still or heal. And here we are in the middle of this global pandemic. And, if you get sick, the pain, the discomfort you feel is saying, sit still, heal. That's why we feel physical pain. It's to tell us, don't lift heavy things with that broken arm. It's healing. Now, then we feel emotional pain, and that's a sign we feel emotional pain when people are breaking our boundaries, violating our boundaries, and we are out of alignment with who we're meant to be. We're not, somebody's kind of behaving in a way that's causing us this emotional pain. Now, spiritual pain, this is really powerful because this is the pain we feel when we feel disconnected from source, or we're connected to source, but we're not embodying who we are meant to be. We're not living from that place of source. So someone's saying, yes, they're corrupt. Okay, they're all corrupt. Now, this is the thing. When you think of they are corrupt, okay? And what we need to be doing is thinking about, well, if we think the leaders of the world are corrupt, this isn't a sign for us to change the leaders and awaken our leaders and say, go be more spiritual. Because actually, we know that doesn't work, right? Just going and saying, you need to be more spiritual. You need to take action for the highest good of all. Actually, what we need to be doing is saying, maybe it's time for me to step into my power. Because here's the thing. Right now, in the world where there's so much uncertainty, there's so much chaos. The more chaos there is in the world, the more people seek out those people who have that sense of certainty, that sense of power, and that sense of compassion, that sense of being connected. The more you convey that, the more people will be attracted to you and whatever it is that you're offering. So we talked about the other day, a couple of weeks ago, about those power centers, about the activating of the power centers of society. So now what I'm going to be talking about over these next few Facebook Lives is I'm going to be sharing how we can each as individuals activate our inner power centers. Because here's the thing. It's not about, a lot of people think, oh, I don't really want to be a leader. The thing is, if you want the world to be different, you already are a leader. You're just not maybe accessing the power that you do have access to, that is within you, that will enable you to embody that power, that leadership, and to attract others into your world they're already here. They're calling for you right now to step into that power. So if we think about this from this idea of conscious leadership, or you might call it spiritual leadership. So a conscious leader is somebody who's the spark. They can ignite the movement. And that doesn't mean you're needing to be this highly visible, highly public figure. You can do it from wherever you are right now. A conscious leader is the person who ignites the spark. They guide others to move to this higher level. So let's look at this from these two perspectives. So conscious and leadership. So consciousness, or spiritual, this is the person who knows that we're all one. They're connected. They have a sense of the divine. They're awakened. People trust themselves. If you are this person, people trust themselves when they're around you. People love you. They connect to you. They relate to you. Okay? Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe that you have this sense that you are this. Everybody loves you. But the problem is, if you are only conscious and spiritual, but you don't have access to power, everybody loves you, but they may not necessarily listen to you. They may not necessarily act on what you know. Like, you probably know what people should be doing, and you might be telling them, but they don't necessarily do it. So this is the person who's spiritual, but they rarely venture out, and they find it difficult to be part of a world where it's so challenging. Then we have the person who's the leader. Okay, this is someone who has authority. They're in a position of authority, whether it's overt because they're a politician, they're wealthy, they have this they have this granted authority, they have this influence. When they speak, people listen. People may not want to listen, but they have to, because they're some kind of a boss, some kind of they have this authority. They create change in the world. They impact other people. People respect them, people trust them. But what if you have a leader they have a person who is a leader but not conscious? So somebody who is conscious and who is spiritual, they want to act and they want to take action and create change that's for the highest good of all. Then you have someone who's a leader who may not necessarily, they may not even know what's for the highest good of all. They may not even care. They'll just do what they want. They may not have any connection to the divine. Now, here's the problem. If a leader isn't working for the highest good of all, they will basically be making decisions that are based on what serves them as individuals. And that's kind of what we've got at the moment. We've got people who are conscious, but not claiming positions of power and leadership. Then you have people who are leaders who aren't necessarily connected to the divine. And what I'm going to suggest is, what if we all started to do both and merge these two attributes, where you have this conscious connection to the divine and you claim your inner power? And again, doesn't necessarily mean you need to be big and loud and brash and have a huge audience. Doesn't mean you need to, stamp your feet and be a bossy boots. I know a lot of people who are spiritual they just don't react well to that. They don't really want to be that. They don't want to represent that. So what's the answer? The answer is for us to embody that place of stillness and certainty amongst the chaos. Because the more stillness, the more certainty you have in a chaotic world, the more you're going to attract those who are seeking that connection and growth. Because here's the thing, your job isn't to save others. Your job as a conscious leader is to show others how to save themselves by showing them how you saved yourself. So are you in that spiritual pain by fear, which is where you feel that disconnection from source, or where you feel that yearning to make the world a better place? And this comes from you not living your purpose, your life purpose. Now, I'll talk more about this I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live for this week, for next week. So I'm going to do another one tomorrow, and I'll talk a little bit more about purpose. Probably Wednesdays might be the purpose one, actually. So the more chaos there is in the world, the more certainty people crave, the more certainty you have about who you are and what your purpose is, the more success you will have. So what I want to talk about today is these power centers. And I'm going to talk about our earth leadership. We're going to start right at the bottom. So an earth leader, here are the signs that you are an earth leader. So an earth leader is someone who has mastered money and finances. This is the person. They are practical, they're grounded, they can take action, and they get things done. They're healthy, they're strong, and they're vibrant. This is the person who never poisons themselves, including through addictions, through eating and taking unhelpful substances. And they also never harm their physical environment, and they never participate in anything that does. An earth leader typically works in small groups or one-to-one. They work in a very intimate way. This is the person who just gets things done quietly behind the scene. And an example of an earth leader is somebody like Mother Teresa. She always says, when I think about the one, I act. When I think about the many, she doesn't. That's what I think her saying is that I don't. When I think about the one, I act. Now, you can spot an earth leader because they're most likely to say something like, how can I help? How can I support you? So that's earth leader. So one of the things that can happen with our power centers is either they might be underactive or overactive. So if you're overactive, This is, and it's often easier to see it in someone else. This is somebody who is a bit of a hoarder. They find it hard to let go of things. This is the person who often demands, they can be a little bit demanding, and they want to be worshipped just for its own sake. And they want to demand unquestioning following. They have this sense of rightness without necessarily knowing and being able to check what's right. This person can be quite jealous, a little bit egotistical, and they can be a little bit of a petty tyrant. Now, you might notice that in other people. Now, the other thing, this is the person who's most likely to say, the person who has an overactive earth leader, they're most likely to say something like, how dare you, or that's mine. Now, an underactive earth leader, this is the opposite. This is where you haven't fully stepped into this. This is somebody who has financial lack or financial struggle. They might be broke. They might have addictions, lack confidence, lack direction, lack self-esteem, and they're often fearful, and they might also have physical, health, or energy-related challenges. Now, one of the easiest ways you can spot this is they say things like, I can't afford it, and they have a problem with money. So I want to talk about this. One of the things they are most likely to say is, money is the root of all evil, or the love of money is the root of all evil. So let's explore this. So there's this big spiritual myth around that to be spiritual, somehow you need to be broke. That is more spiritual to give all your money away and to reject money, or to attack those who have money, is one of the ways this shows up. And this spiritual myth, let's look at where it comes from. So one of the things I did was I actually studied biblical Hebrew and Aramaic. I'm not very proficient in it at all. But I did study it, and I studied it because I wanted to get a sense of some of the real meanings of some of the biblical quotes that people were quoting to me. So I looked at this, the Bible says money is the root of all evil. So I looked at this. So first thing, I find this quite hysterical, right? So first of all, the full quote is the love of money. And that's how people often, they go, no, it's not money, it's the love of money. So does anyone know where this, and quote, pop in here if you know where this quote comes from, if you know actually where this quote comes from. So people say the Bible, where is it in the Bible? So if you know where it is, pop it in there. And I'll tell you, I'll help you out here. Oh, I'm bumping my microphone. Okay. So I'll tell you where it is. It comes from the book of Timothy, chapter 6, verse 10. So the full quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil. So the first thing, if you actually go and read this, first thing you might notice is that, I'm getting all sorts of little messages. I don't want to connect that. Oh my goodness, my Facebook page is telling me, do I want to do something? So first thing is, so the first thing is, in the context of this quote in the Bible, what are they talking about? They're talking about slavery. So if somebody is quoting to you, the love of money is the root of all evil, therefore and what this often means is therefore you should not have money and you should be broke. So the context that he's talking about this is slavery. So I often say is, when somebody quotes that to me, I say, oh, that's really interesting. How many slaves have you got? I'm pretty sure we've abolished slavery. I tend not to have slaves, and I tend not to really like to, sort of encourage it. I generally think slavery is not a great thing. So and when you look at the context, what he's actually talking about, what he's saying is, if you starve your slaves, they won't really want to work very hard. So Josephine said, yes, Mark 10:25, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of needle than an rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Yeah, but let's look at the other context of that. Yeah, but I'm looking at this particular context, this particular quote that people say, which is the love of money is the root of all evil. That's the quote I'm looking at the moment. Now, so he's talking about this in the context of slavery. So what when I look at what I did was I looked at the individual words that we're talking about here. So the first word is this word love, the love of money. Okay. So in this translation, which comes from Aramaic, and the word is something like sagud, something like that. And if we look at that word, there's the word love, the love of money. Now, in Aramaic, there are several versions of this word love. Am I still live? Can you all guys still see me? Looks like I've frozen or locked up, but that's okay. So there are various versions of the word love. Now, there's platonic love, there's spiritual love, there's romantic love, and there's also this word love, which is more like the word worship. So when we're talking about this quote, oh, good. So you can still see me. I looked like I'd locked up there. So this word worship. So the worship of money. And and this means the adoration of money above all other things. And what he's actually saying here in this quote, he's saying, if you value money above the welfare of your slaves, you might, that's not good. You need to look after your slaves. Otherwise, they might get sick. They might run away. If you don't feed them well, they won't be able to work hard. So you should always look after your slaves. So he's saying, don't worship money above the welfare of your slaves. Then I want to look at this word, the root of, because so look at this word, the root of. So the love of money. So what he's actually saying is not the love of money, the worship of money above all other things. And then let's look at this word root. So rather than the word root of, this word actually better translates into is the cause of or leads to. So there's a big difference to root and cause of. Then I want to look at this next phrase, which is all. Like the next word I want to look at is all, and then I'm going to look at the word evil. So if we look at the word, in this translation, the worship of money is the cause of all. Now, the word there, the translation is a better translation. Rather than all, there's actually a little bit of a word that's a few little piece of a joining word that's been left out. And that word is better translated into these kinds of. Instead of all, it's these kinds of. Now, this is really important, because rather than saying the worship of money is the cause of all, right? It's the cause of these kinds of. There's a big difference between money is the cause of all evil. I mean, that's very precise. All, not just some or these kinds of, or every single evil in the whole entire universe is caused by money. That's a bit of a grand statement. Like, it's not caused by I don't know, bacteria or illness or greed or anything. It's or hatred or sin. It's money is the cause of all evil. Now, actually, what he's saying, and when you look at the translation, he's saying these kinds of, and then he talks of the next word is misery. The word is not evil. And in fact, in the Bible, in Aramaic, there isn't a word for evil. There's a word for misery. So there's a bit, I would submit to you that there's a big difference between the quote, the love of money is the root of all evil, versus the worship of money is the cause of all these kinds of misery, all these kinds of problems, distress, injury. And then what he does is he goes on to list what those problems might be. So he's basically saying, if you don't if you value money above the welfare of your slaves, then it'll lead to these kinds of problems. Your slaves might run away, they might get sick, they might be disloyal. Because slavery, I mean, here's the really interesting thing. By the way, I'm not advocating slavery, I'm just bringing it into context. But one of the things he's saying is actually there's a responsibility of the slave owner to have as his as the owner of slaves to value the welfare of the slaves. Okay, so that's what he's saying. So somebody's saying I'm frozen. Hopefully I'm moving now. So there's a big difference between worship of money is the love of money is the root of all evil, and the worship of money is the cause of all these kinds of misery. And this is why we should value our slaves and take care of them and look after them, and that there's a responsibility, that we have a duty of care to look after our slaves. By the way, I'm certainly not advocating slavery. Just going to say that once more time. Now, here's another thing that Timothy also says. So we're now in Timothy book 1, chapter 5, verse 17. And what he says there, he's now talking about spiritual leaders, and he's talking about the responsibility that you have as a spiritual leader. Now, he uses the word spiritual leader, and he also uses the word rabbi, because in the time of writing, spiritual leaders were rabbis. Okay, so whether you might call that a priest, a spiritual teacher, anything like that. So what he also says is spiritual teachers who are good leaders should be considered worthy of ample payment. Wow, that's a little bit different. What he's saying there, and in the context of this, what he's saying is, I'm just going to repeat that, spiritual leaders are worthy of ample payment. He actually says double the stipend. Rabbis who are good rabbis deserve double the stipend. So he's saying, if you're a spiritual leader, you should be paid twice as much, because you not only have the welfare of your own life, but you are responsible for holding and taking care of your flock. And because that's your primary responsibility, that's your duty, is to take care of that. You're in charge of, if you like, you're custodian of the spiritual welfare of your flock. And therefore, all worldly worries should be removed. And by worldly worries, he's saying that the rabbi, the spiritual teacher, should not need to go and take a second job, stacking shelves in Tesco's to pay the bills, so that they can then at the weekend do their spiritual thing. Because that's what a lot of spiritual people are trying to do. A lot of spiritual people, they try and go out there and be this spiritual leader, but then they have to be broke. So then they have to do two jobs, one to pay the bills, and then try and cram in their life's purpose of being of healing, of helping others, of supporting others, in that time when you can fit it in around doing the work where you pay your bills. So what Timothy's saying is, your job should only be to have the welfare of your flock. Your job should only be to look after the spiritual welfare of your people. So this is what an earth leader, and as an earth leader, you can't be that kind of leader. If you are broke, if you don't have financial support, if you have challenges with money, and you're not comfortable charging what you're worth, then you need to look at that. And you need to look at that first and foremost. You need to have the ability to create a powerful value exchange, and you need to recognize the value of your job, which sometimes might be meditating. Your job sometimes might be channeling, getting those downloads so that you can share them, not going out and being a working in Tesco's, and I just use this as an example, but not stacking shelves in Tesco's so that then you can squeeze in around that time, around that work, the time to do the real work. You need to be compensated, and you need to understand the value of what you are bringing to the world, not just to your specific clients that you're offering that value to, but the entire world. If your job is to be a spiritual messenger, to be a to be a messenger of consciousness, of awakening, of healing, of assisting others to reconnect to themselves, if that's your job, then that's the only thing you should be doing, and you should be compensated for that. And if that means somebody else paying you and have it so that you can just do that, then you should be charging. And if you have any issues around that, then that's what we need to be looking at. And so you need to get some support so that you can clear that. So here are some questions for you to start asking yourself. Are you being paid what you're worth? Do you have a solid value-based exchange where you say, I can do this for you and this is how much it costs? Do you have challenges around money and asking for what you're worth? If money were no object, what would you do? Would you still be living your life exactly as you are? So here's some fun questions. What would you love your net wealth and net worth to be? What's your desired income? And if it's less than what you're currently getting, then there's some issue. Now, it might be in this earth leadership activation, or it might be somewhere else, because sometimes it can happen further up up this channel of this central column of your beingness. So it might be somewhere else. So here's some other questions. And this is a fun one. So a couple of weeks ago, I actually had somebody who wanted to work with me, and they weren't really my ideal client. They like, and I'm very clear about who I am and what I know what I'm meant to be doing here on the planet. I know that I'm here to teach others and assist others to reconnect to themselves. I know my soul name. So my soul name is I am the divine liberator. Or my soul name is also my soul's purpose, which is that I liberate divinity. So you notice how there's both of those. So I'm the divine liberator and I liberate divinity. And everything I do in my business is about assisting others to liberate their own inner divinity. And when I get somebody, literally so if somebody wants to work with me one-to-one, then prices start from, depending on the program and how we're working, start from over £50,000 plus VAT. Yes, it's a lot of money. And the reason is because I'm very clear about what I'm here to do. I am here to teach, and I work with groups. And if you want to work with me one-to-one, that's what you would need to, that's what the investment would be. And for certain people, I will work one-to-one. Now, I was working with this guy. He wanted to work with me. He was willing to pay the money. He had the money. And I said no, because I didn't get a sense that he was really wanting to liberate his inner divinity. For him, it was kind of a power trick. He wanted the kudos of working in this particular way with me, rather than he was trying to control the process. So I was really clear. He wasn't the sort of person I wanted to work with. He just wasn't a good match. And it wasn't in alignment with my soul purpose and my soul name. Now, so here's the question. So can you bring that into your life? So if I had a client who wanted to pay you, let's say that there was this client who says, I'd love to work with you, and I'm willing to pay you £100,000, but it means you need to stop doing what you're currently doing and just do this with me, just work with me for, I don't know, 2 months. Would you and could you do that? Now, if the answer is that if you know that they are that person and the work you'd be doing with them was completely in alignment with your soul's purpose, then you would be able to say yes. Okay. And if that person now here's the other thing. If I had somebody who that person was not, like, they wanted to pay you a lot of money, and they were willing to and able to pay you a lot of money, but it meant you had to stop living your purpose, could you afford to say no to it? Because essentially what people do, they spend most of their time doing is doing things that are out of alignment with their soul's purpose because they need the money. So the reason I could and did say no to this guy is because that work would take me out of and away from doing my soul's purpose work. My soul's purpose work is this kind of teaching. Now, when I take anyone on as a one-to-one client, I pretty much I got all my attention is focused on them and them supporting them to get the result. Okay, so if you had somebody who was willing to pay you, but it meant doing something that was out of alignment with what you know you're here to do, would you and could you afford to say no, even if they were going to pay you lots of money? So be interested to know what your take on that is. And actually, yeah, if you've got any questions or you just want to share any thoughts, like what's your thoughts on this? Now, if you had someone who couldn't pay you, but really needed the work you do, would you do it? And could you afford to do it? Could you afford to take this person on as a client for nothing because they needed? Would you and could you? Now, there isn't a wrong or right answer with this. There's no wrong or right answer, but I think it's an interesting question for you to ask yourself. Anytime you're in a position where you're going to create a value exchange, are you taking on that client for the money or because it's in alignment with your soul's purpose? And if somebody, if you've got somebody who wants to work with you and it's in alignment with your soul's purpose, can you say yes to that client? Can you afford to? And can you take that client on? If that client is in alignment with your soul's purpose and they want to pay you money, can they find you? Can they see you? Are you able to say yes to that? So what are your thoughts? Does this make sense? Do you like this? Is it interesting? How is this landing? I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are, how you're experiencing this. So we've talked about, this is the Earth Leadership Power Center. So when you have that Earth Leadership Power Center, you are an Earth leader. You are able to say, how can I support you? And when you're in a position to create you can be in a position, you can create a value exchange with others, and you can receive and give, and it's in alignment with your soul's purpose. You feel great about doing that. You feel great about the work you do. You feel great about being paid for it. You can afford to do this work, and you can't afford not to, because you know the cost to your soul. So let me know what your thoughts are. Is this useful? Is this empowering? Is this impactful? So if you know of anyone who you think this might be useful to, please go ahead and share this. Wow, I've been talking for 37 minutes. That seemed to go really quickly. Boom. What happened there? So if this is useful to you, let me know. Please share this. Please tag anyone else, and I will see you tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the next power center, and this is our ecstatic leader. And an ecstatic leader, somebody who has this and embodies this quality, they are magnetic, and they just magnetically attract to them others who are in alignment with who they are and this value exchange. And I am suddenly starving hungry, so I'm going to go get some food. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been useful to you. Let me know if you have any questions. Someone said really insightful, particularly love the Bible references and how they can be distorted with translation. There are so many distortions in the Bible and in translations, and the biggest one is they're taken out of context. They're taken as these little snippets of like, this is the truth. And I was speaking to someone recently, and they said, when you're trying to create I was going to say an argument, but I don't mean an argument as in a disagreement. I just mean as in a debate. When you're in a debate or a discussion and somebody simply says, the Bible says, actually you've already lost it, because you're actually relying on an external authority, which a lot of people, it's become distorted and dogmatic, rather than it actually being something that's impactful and is reasoned and is grounded. So it's like, okay, well, the Bible says, and here's how I interpret this, and here's how we can use this. Here's how it's useful. Being an engineer, I always liked the phrase. It's like, well, how can we use this? How is this useful? What does it do? As my engineering brain says, what does that do then? So look forward to seeing you tomorrow, where we're going to explore being that magnet of that magnetic, ecstatic leader. Should we play? That's a little clue about what's coming tomorrow. Should we play? So I will see you tomorrow. Till then, huge, huge love. If you liked this, click the like button. If you loved it, click the love button. If you want to share this and get other share this with others, then please do so, or tag them in the comments so they can go and watch this. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Huge love. Bye.